a counterfeiter's crazy defense, is Tom Cruise leaving the church, and Joe's new career, all on episode 30 of the Culture and Arts Podcast.
Welcome to the return, episode 30 of the Culture and Arts Podcast. The long-awaited hiatus is over. How do we explain that to people? We would just been gone for a long time.
That's basically it. I mean, just life's been busy.
Life's been busy. Okay, so we would just plead with CAP listeners to understand that we don't get paid for this. This is just something we do for fun. We like to get together and talk about topical things and talk about, obviously, pop culture, culture and arts, whatever. So if there are periods where things just kind of are slow and die out, keep an eye on the feed and see what pops up when it pops up. But, there might be spaces in between because this is a hobby. This is fun.
Right.
But other than that, how have you been?
I've been great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How's the career? How's life?
Everything's going really good. And most importantly, my parents, who've had a lot of health issues over the last couple years, they really seem to be turning the corner and
doing well.
Doing very well.
That's great, man. That's great. That's good to hear. Things have been well for me. I have officially quit my job.
Yes.
I've quit sales. I no longer work in sales. And it's the best decision I've ever made. Ever. Maybe besides marriage. So there you have that. Let me tell you a little bit about what happened.
Okay.
Because, we've talked in the past about Judd Apatow.
Yes.
My constant tweeting him, trying to get in on a picture.
Right.
And he's snubbed me more times than, the Emmys have snubbed, I don't know, anything good this year. So I quit my job on a whim. It wasn't on a whim. It was stewing. I was frustrated with some of the things that were going on. Not necessarily even with the company that I was with, because they were fine, but it was more with something within myself, because I just didn't feel like sales is where I belonged. Mm-hmm. There was something very empty for me. Like, I didn't feel like that was my place in the universe. And I just knew, I don't know, every day I could just envision myself coming home unhappy and kind of being miserable in this 9 to 5, Monday through Friday kind of thing where there was very little variety. Mm-hmm. And it was crazy to me because the weekends, the song Loverboy, everybody's working for the weekend.
Right.
I was always working for the weekend. I was always working for 5 o'clock. And when the weekend came, or when 5 o'clock came, the time just went by so fast. Mm-hmm. And I'm just not the kind of guy that's cut out to have meetings to talk about upcoming meetings. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's just not who I am. I need a little bit of I need a lot of variety. I need to not know what I'm getting into from day to day. Like, there's something special about that kind of spontaneity and impulsivity in me. So anyway, I submitted a photo and a bio to a casting company in Chicago. And within 2 hours, they contacted me and they asked me if I wanted to be part of a Spike Lee movie. Spike Lee.
You're that in demand.
Now, of course, I'm like, this has got to be a scam.
Right.
For them to call me within 2 hours and say, do you want to be in a Spike Lee movie? So I'm like online and I'm researching and I'm looking for rip-off reports and bad stories about these people. And I couldn't find anything. And so I turned to my wife and I'm like, well, what if I was to go and be in a Spike Lee movie? And she didn't believe me, of course. And we worked it out. And I was like, I'm just going to go. I'm going to go to Chicago and I'm going to see what's going on. And I had somewhat expected to show up and get mugged, like this was some sort of Craigslist scam that you'd read about in the news.
Right.
But sure enough, I get there, and then all of a sudden, there's Spike Lee, and there's Lala Anthony, and there's John Cusack, and there's Nick Cannon, and Samuel L. Jackson, and there's like all these well-known people in this shot. And even a few that were not so well known that I recognized, but I really didn't know their name at the time, Harry Lennox, who's from The Blacklist.
Right.
He's there, and this guy Steve Harris, who's been in a few movies, he was in The Skulls, he was in Medea's Diary of a Mad Black Woman.
Okay.
He's been in a few things. Angela Bassett was there. And I'm just like, holy cow, this is just like this whole We Are the World room full of celebrities.
Right.
And then Spike Lee. And I'm just like, this is real. Like, what is going on? And I ended up being able to not only serve like 10 days on that movie in June, but then the next thing you know, like I'm meeting people and I'm networking and they're giving me all this information about other casting agencies that do this background stuff. And next thing you know, I'm on a movie with Jake Johnson that Jake Johnson is actually directing. Jake Johnson was just in Jurassic World. He's New Girls, the show he's popular for. He's been in a show called Drinking Buddies that has like Olivia Wilde. Ironically, now that I've been in a movie with Jake Johnson, who's been in a movie with Olivia Wilde, who called me a douchebag on Twitter, and I just feel like everything is just synchronizing. You know, it's crazy to me. And I was in a commercial for a personal injury attorney, and then I don't know, it's just crazy. Like these companies, they do casting for Empire, Chicago Fire, Chicago PD. They're going to have another one coming up called Chicago Med that's going to be filming there. And it just turns out there's all sorts of filming that goes on in Chicago, and I wasn't really familiar with it. They did Batman versus Superman there last December, so I missed that one, but I could have been there. It's crazy. Crazy world. And I feel like I'm finding my niche, and I'm there, and all of a sudden I've got the bug, and I'm like, I want to take some acting classes. I want a speaking part and all this stuff. But there's something really beautiful and awesome about the way that things have been working out on my end because, you wake up and you drive 2 hours, but it doesn't even matter that you're going to work 14-hour day with a 2-hour commute on both sides because, honestly, I don't know what I'm getting into. The first day I was learning military drills, and the second day I was standing behind Angela Bassett and a group of protesters. And then, in this movie that I'm doing now, I'm in like a seedy Chinese casino gambling with Jake Johnson. And it's just insane. Like there's so much variety. And I'm in Wrigleyville. Like we're in this fancy apartment that they've transformed into this underground casino right behind where the Cubs play.
Wow.
And you just never know where you're going to go or what to expect when you come in for the shoot. And I think it's awesome. I'm not bringing in the big dollars yet, but I'll tell you that I'm more fulfilled with the work that I do to the extent that when they say that's a wrap, we're done for the day, I always feel a shred of disappointment. I don't really want to leave, because I just want to be a part of everything.
Quite a jump from radio sales.
Hell yes. Man. So I won't rant about it any longer. That was longer than I expected to go on, but I realized, and I want to convey to everybody how excited I am about all this because it's just so, I don't know, it's just so different than anything I've ever done. And it's probably something I should have been doing all along. But, everything happens for a reason. I am the type of person that does believe in destiny and, that everything has a time and place. So I'm just going to ride this wave and see how tall it gets.
Good for you.
Yeah. But, yeah, so what have you got on the docket for us this week on episode 30?
Okay, well, we love strange stories here on the Cap.
Oh, yeah.
And a woman in Florida was recently arrested for counterfeiting money and gave one of the more unusual defenses you'll ever hear to a crime. Her defense was basically, Obama made it legal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Elaborate on that. What was her justification?
She actually found... Oh, hang on. She actually found a website that had an article entitled, Obama Wants Citizens to Print Their Own Money.
Okay.
Okay, and as it turns out, it was from a parody site called The Skunk.
Oh, okay.
But she apparently believed it was true and went so far as to say, I don't give a blank. All these other blanks get to print money, so I can too.
I feel bad for her naivete.
Right.
But I also feel kind of bad because there's an extent to which she's correct. Not that it was Obama, but our government's philosophy on printing money to get ourselves out of a pickle. It's not backed by anything. It's a fiat currency, so it essentially is need more money? We'll print more money.
Right.
And that kind of thing. So if attitude reflects leadership, And if government sets the example and they're essentially counterfeiting all the time to be in order to pay their bills or loan other countries money, then to an extent, she's accurate.
But now the article did go on to say they found between $30,000 and $50,000 counterfeit in her apartment.
Yeah?
And most of them were very bad, like black and white prints, and she'd basically print the front on one page and the back on another and then glue them together. And on most of them, one side would actually be upside down.
It'll be upside down. So what did she do? She just like, were they at least in line, or did she have to like cut each of them out and then like tape them together?
She actually glued them together. So I guess she would cut them out and then glue them together.
Did she try to spend them? Did she try to spend the money?
That's how they got her. She tried to pass a fake $5 bill at a gas station.
You know, if I was the gas station employee, I'd be like, I mean, you're joking, right? Like, no, this is my money. Obama told me to print this. Well, for all the times that Obama said, well, let me be clear, he probably should have clarified that one a little bit more.
Right.
So that's crazy, man. That's crazy. You could have just used Monopoly money. It probably would have looked better than what she was printing.
Right.
But again, I think there's a shred of accuracy to that. What else? I know there's like a million things we could talk about on this episode because it's been so long.
Yeah. There are reports that Tom Cruise is ready to leave the Church of Scientology.
Holy cow. Speaking of Tom Cruise, did you see that he did that stunt for Mission Impossible, like the new Mission Impossible movie? He actually did his own stunts. And in one scene, he was hanging from an airplane by his fingertips.
I did see that.
What a crazy guy. Mm-hmm. I'd be like, let the stunt guy do that all day long.
That's one thing you have to like about the Mission Impossible franchise. The stunts are very real.
Yeah.
You know, they try not to rely on a lot of CGI. And
I mean, just the fact that he would do that shows.
Yeah.
I think it shows how serious he is about what he does.
Right.
You know, so there's an element to Tom Cruise that you can kind of respect and appreciate beyond a lot of other celebrities for every crazy thing that he's ever done, especially with Scientology. So what he's possibly going to leave, and is that speculated by some sort of media sources, or is that something that he's verbalized?
It didn't mention any of the sources. All it said is apparently he wants to connect with his daughter Suri, and she's about to be labeled a suppressive person.
How can you label a child as an SP?
She's 9 years old. I mean,
yeah.
It's like, come on.
What wrong has she done in the world?
Right.
That is just, I mean, if I were Tom Cruise, are you really going to let this group of people tell you how and when to see your child?
Right.
It's one thing with an ex-wife or somebody you probably don't want to see anyway. But when it comes to your kids, I mean, come on, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like this is Christ Jesus telling you. This is, I mean, essentially an organization that was formed within our grandparents' lifetimes.
Right.
And you're going to let them tell you who you can and cannot see?
Now, obviously, Tom Cruise is the most visible member of the Scientology movement. So if they do lose him, that would be a big... Yeah. But they do speculate that they would just pass John Travolta would basically take his place as far as the visible face.
Do you think Going Clear, the HBO documentary, was like a significant blow to the church?
I think so, because they've really fought against that.
Yeah, they have. They sure have. But I watched it, and it was interesting. It was stuff that I really already knew that we'd discussed on the Cap before. But,
right.
But I mean, it was still really interesting to hear personal testimonies from people who'd been kind of wooed by the church and swept off their feet, and then eventually came to realize that it was nuts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you watch it by any chance?
I didn't get a chance to see it.
If you get a chance, it's pretty good. It's pretty interesting, and they show clips of Tom Cruise addressing like their national church organizations, events, and like being almost, it seems like, second in command in a lot of ways. Like, I think the leader of the church, his name is David Miscavige or something like that. And when he brings Tom Cruise on stage, it seems like he's bringing an assistant pastor or assistant owner. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the titles would be. But somebody who's obviously very highly respected, and people seem really motivated in the church by Tom Cruise and his words and everything else. But I don't care how many thousands of people within that organization look up to you. Your kid is your kid, and that should really be the only thing that matters. So,
Right.
I mean, if Tom Cruise happens upon the Culture and Arts podcast, bro, reality check. If you're not already thinking about it, stop considering and just take the leap.
Yeah, because there's reports that it caused problems in all 3 of his marriages.
I would probably...
and now if it's causing problems with his relationship with his daughter, I think it's something he needs to really do some soul searching in.
Yeah.
I do have one conspiracy theory, though.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if we've ever mentioned this on the air, but I know we've discussed that part of what makes this show interesting for us is we only met once before we started doing this show.
Right.
So we've kind of gotten to know each other as we've done this. And one of the things I learned early on about you was you did have kind of this curiosity about Scientology and how people can kind of fall into it.
Any cults, really.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden, once I hear Tom Cruise is leaving, you all of a sudden have this path into Hollywood with your new acting career. And I'm just wondering if maybe you're trying to line yourself up to get in on the inside of the Scientology movement and see what it's really all about.
Be the next Tom Cruise?
Yes.
Yeah, they're not going to actually replace him with Travolta. It's going to be me.
Yes.
In fact, I've been corresponding with John Travolta about this because I want him to know no hard feelings. I don't want him to feel like I'm trying to take his spot.
Right.
And I want to make sure that going into Hollywood, a legend like him is not going to be too frustrated with me. So my first letter in regards to how I felt about the Church of Scientology is simply said, I got chills. They're multiplying. And I'm losing control. The power that the Church of Scientology is supplying, it's electrifying. So there's that. I think he's going to be all right.
I think so, yeah.
What else we got going on? Aside from the Church of Scientology, I know that you said you went and saw Ant-Man.
I did see Ant-Man last night, and I need to apologize to Paul Rudd. Because I was critical of him being picked. Nothing against him personally. It's just Ant-Man is a character that normally doesn't have a lot of humor. But
how much did you know about Ant-Man going into the film?
I knew a little bit. I've never actually read any of the comics, but he has been a presence in cartoons more recently, and so I've done a little reading about the character. And
he always seems more serious?
He always seems more serious. But at the same time, what they did interesting in this movie is there have been different people to be Ant-Man in the comics. The most famous one is Hank Pym, which was actually Michael Douglas's character.
Okay.
And then Scott Lang, which was Paul Rudd's character.
So when they introduce Paul Rudd's character, Michael Douglas's character is kind of passing on the torch as though he's done it before?
Yeah, essentially.
Okay.
And so it was just kind of interesting that they had both versions, in one movie. And I know very little about the Scott Lang character. I believe in the comics he originally stole the Ant-Man suit to commit crimes. It's a little bit different in the movie, but the movie is really funny, which is not normally something you want to hear about a superhero movie, but it absolutely worked.
Marvel seems to really drive a lot of humor into their films recently.
They do.
It started with Iron Man, but I mean, the last Avengers movie, the scene with Thor's hammer was very funny.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you liked it. I'm excited about seeing it. The only problem that I'm having is I know that the summer of movies has finally caught up to me because they released Ant-Man and Trainwrecked at the same time, and I want to see Trainwrecked because I love Judd Apatow. I think Amy Schumer is very funny, and John Cena's in the film, so they brought a wrestler in. It's just, I don't know, like I'm kind of excited to see that one too. So it's a matter of if I'm going to go spend my $10, how do I choose?
Right.
How do I choose? I'll probably choose Ant-Man, but I'm just going to be kind of fiending for... I wish there would be like a double feature, 2 for the price of one kind of thing, and I could just spend 6 hours at the theater. I'd be all about it.
It's been a pretty good summer of movies, though, because...
It's gone by so fast, and at least here in Northwest Indiana, I don't feel like we've had much of a summer. It's been a lot of rain and stuff, so What's come out? They had
There was Avengers.
Avengers.
There was the Entourage movie, which if you were a fan of,
I love that.
yeah, if you're a fan of the show, you'll love the movie.
Have we talked about that since we?
No,
have
it's been that long.
So I have a story about Entourage. When I was Jerry Ferrara, who plays Turtle in the show Entourage, he has a podcast called Bad for Business, bad for the number 4 business, and he said that anybody who went to see the Entourage movie, because in the weeks prior to the film's release, every week he interviewed somebody from the cast of Entourage. So, as a fan of the show, I'm going back and I'm listening to all these interviews, and I'm just like, man, this is a lot of fun. And he's like, yeah, anybody that goes to see the movie when it comes out, if you send me your picture, then I'll retweet it. Did you go see the movie?
I did.
Because did you get a retweet from somebody?
I got one from Jerry Ferrara.
That's right. Right. So I was like, well, I'm going to go see it, and I'll get my picture retweeted too. So I posted that I was there. Well, I'm sitting in the movie, and my phone lights up, and I'm in the back row, and there's only like 11 people in the movie. Now, granted, it's like 10 a.m. I went to the earliest show.
Right.
Our town's not huge, whatever. It's like a Monday. So who goes to the theater, on a Monday morning at 10 o'clock? But I got a direct message from Jeremy Piven, who plays Ari Gold on the show, and he's just like, hey, how's the theater looking? And I was like, now how do I tell Jeremy Piven that the turnout is 11 people?
Right.
I'm going to hurt the man's feelings. He's going to be bummed. And from what I understand, the movie didn't do as well as they wanted it to.
Right.
Because they were looking for it to get a sequel and, be like Sex and the City. Well, I was basically like, well, it's not packed, but everybody that's here is laughing. And it's in a small town, and it's a Monday morning at 10 o'clock. And he didn't respond after that. And I was like, oh, he's bummed. He's probably looking for like, oh, man, it's packed, and everybody's enjoying it and whatever.
Right.
But nothing to that nature. I was trying to be honest without being like, dude, this sucks. Only 11 people here. And, I never heard anything back from Piven. I was kind of hoping, he'd be like, oh, cool, man, thanks for the update or something. But he was just like, no, not talking to you anymore.
Yeah. I did tweet the picture of my ticket stub to pretty much everybody.
On the cast?
On the cast that's on Twitter, because a lot of them were actively doing that kind of thing, but Ferrara was the only one that...
What'd you think of the movie?
It was a lot of fun. I mean,
it's just like a long episode of the show, wasn't it?
Yeah, basically.
I enjoyed it. I liked the way that they ended it. Spoiler alert, Johnny Drama, he gets his at the end.
Yes.
I was just waiting for him to say victory, and he shouted victory, and that's how they closed it out, and I was like, that was the perfect way to end that. I knew that's how they were going to go. So that was really cool. I wasn't as excited about Eric and Sloane not being together through most of the movie, because when we left them at the end of the series, they were getting married, and so like they had some marital problems. He cheated on her or whatever, and I wasn't so happy about that. Because you root for them as a fan on the show. Other than that, let's see, Entourage.
And there was a moment in the Entourage movie where it looks like Eric's world is about to come crumbling down.
Yeah,
and
he got trolled hard.
Yes, he did.
Oh man. So, other than Entourage and Avengers 2, refresh my memory. What's been awesome?
I did go see Jurassic World.
I saw that too.
Yeah.
That was, in my opinion, kind of like, I don't think it was bad by any stretch. I think it was just kind of at par with all the other Jurassic Park movies, especially like 1 and 2.
I'll say this. I absolutely hated number 2.
Okay.
I did not enjoy 2 at all. But I did like Jurassic World, the recent one. It was...
So, at par with number 1 then, maybe?
Probably not as good, but I mean, it's in that ballpark. It's,
okay.
Yeah, it's...
Okay. I just, the problem that I have with that series, as much as like it's enjoyable to watch the dinosaurs, and they always have good actors and whatever, is like I just keep thinking like, why do they keep doing this?
I know.
Every time it goes bad, and they still keep making these dinosaurs.
Yes.
Why wouldn't you just create a park full of like herbivores? That vegetable eating dinosaurs, and they can walk around and eat trees. Kids would still be like enthralled with the presence of a brontosaurus.
Yeah.
They don't need a velociraptor. They don't need a T-Rex, and they certainly don't need some cross-hybridization, if that's even a word, of the dinosaurs. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
It's like they want to die.
Yeah, those who don't learn from history are destined to repeat it.
Yeah.
And they just keep making dinosaurs, and
Yeah.
it keeps going wrong.
And that was like in the movie. It was part of the theme. It was like, oh, yeah, they had this bad incident on the original Jurassic Park. And, it's like, so they get it.
right.
They know it's dangerous. And still, Jurassic Park universe. Don't be idiots. I realize it makes money on TV, but don't be idiots anymore. What else? What else has come out this summer? We've got just a couple more minutes, and then we got to raise the cap.
Well, let me ask you this question. What did you think of the Batman versus Superman trailer?
I like that they addressed the property damage in Man of Steel.
Yes.
And it's like, I don't know, I almost got the impression like Batman's ticked off because, he's destroying everything, and he's this god, and he feels like he's the only one that's at all equipped to step up and try to challenge him. And it is weird, because Superman's a good guy, and he's a Boy Scout, but there's an element to, if any civilian destroyed that much stuff, whether he was doing it for a good reason or not, people are going to turn heads and, wonder why he wasn't put in prison.
Right.
Or fined or caused to pay for it and have, some sort of restitution. But then you've got this guy who comes down from another planet. We know that he's unable to be destroyed by any human. And that could be a really scary thing if he were to, be a villain and not a superhero. So Bruce Wayne's going to try to take him on, and I guess I kind of understand it. What I don't understand is how the heck he's going to even compete. My son watches a video on YouTube, and it's a little boy. He had a song, I need to know now, if you love me. Yeah, all right, so they've got this one. It's a little boy dressed as Superman and a little boy dressed as Batman, and they're like auto-tuned, and they're singing a parody of that song, and it's I need to know now, who's the fastest hero? I need to know now who's the best hero. And so Batman and Superman are both giving their competing reasons why they're the best hero. And then at the end of the video, Superman is just standing on Batman's back, and Batman can't get up. And so he's like, I need to know now. Batman says, or he says, I really hurt now. Can you get off my back or something? And I'm just like, well, that'd kind of be how this battle would take place, because if, Superman just chose to stand on top of Batman or push him down with his leg or something, he couldn't get up, right?
Well,
because he's super strong.
What you got to remember is Batman's a smart guy. He's the detective of the Justice League. He'll get his hands on some kryptonite.
You think so?
I
That's
think
what it's
so.
going to come down to, is kryptonite?
Yeah.
I was going to say, it almost has to. Now, I will say I was watching Superman Returns yesterday, and I like how colorful it was. You know, the dark, gritty thing going into Man of Steel, it seemed like a really good idea, but there were just elements of the story that I didn't like. For instance, Jonathan Kent's death, I thought was just so heinous and stupid. Superman, faster than a speeding bullet, couldn't have swooped him up and the dog in a matter of just a split second and then had them be safe. And Jonathan Kent's like, no, don't save me. I'm gonna die.
Right.
And it was supposed to be some grand sacrifice for his son's identity or whatever. He didn't want the world to know. But really, if he's as fast as I think Superman is, which is flash fast, right?
He can rival him at the very least. I mean,
so he should be able to do it without anybody actually seeing him. You remember X-Men: Days of Future Past? Quicksilver was running around a room and doing things, and everybody else was just freeze framed.
Yeah,
it could have been like that. Nobody would have been any wiser. So I felt like that was a plot hole. And I just hope they do a better job at this one. But it does seem like, from what I've read, it's going to be less about Clark and more about Bruce and kind of introducing the Justice League universe to the world.
Yeah.
You?
I would agree with that. And and let's not forget Wonder Woman is in the movie.
Hot.
Yes.
Gal Gadot. If we were Wayne's World, we'd say, swing! And then Suicide Squad. What's your take on that?
That's the kind of movie Zack Snyder should probably direct, because if he gets too dark with that, it's not going to screw it up.
Right.
But I'll keep an eye on it. It seems interesting. The only thing that worries me is there was an animated movie a year or two ago, like DVD release, about the Suicide Squad that seems to be almost identical.
Oh, really?
To what I've seen.
Tell me what you think of Jared Leto's Joker. I think that's all eyes are kind of on him because of how iconic Heath Ledger's Joker was in The Dark Knight Rises.
Very creepy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be scary.
You know, to me, the impression that I got was almost like a younger Joker, like a Sid. What's his name from the Sex Pistols?
Oh, was that Sid Vicious?
Sid Vicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's kind of what I got.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, almost kind of like a punk rock look to the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's what he was going for or whatever. But I mean, he does seem like he's going to do a great job, and it's going to be different. It's going to be unique. But yeah, it just seems like a totally different take.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the advantage is with the Suicide Squad, if they don't stick to canon, as they say, and vary from the comic books, most people aren't going to have a clue.
No, nobody will notice.
I mean,
I won't notice because I don't read the comic books that closely. But yeah, it just looks interesting. It's time to raise the cap. So tell me who you're going to raise the cap to on episode 30. This is kind of a maniversary, cap-aversary,
Yeah. I just want to tip my cap to Paul Rudd, sort of as an apology for my doubts, and he did a great job in Ant-Man.
I love any time he promotes a movie on Conan O'Brien.
Oh, that's great.
The Mac and Me clips.
Yes.
If you haven't seen that, get on YouTube and look at Paul Rudd on Conan O'Brien. No matter what movie, he always brings a clip from Mac and Me and it's the same clip.
Yes.
Love it. I'm going to tip my cap to, have you watched the show on Fox called Wayward Pines?
No, I haven't. Man.
It's a miniseries, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to ruin it by saying, oh, the ratings are good, we're going to extend it longer than it needs to be. It's 10 episodes, and it's the 10th episode next week. And I just watched the second to the last episode this morning. And I haven't seen a show that well put together in a very, very long time. And to know that it's going to be start to finish, it's going to get an end. I don't got to worry about it being canceled or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Great actors. Matt Dillon, Carla Gugino, I think that's how you say her name.
I think so.
Okay. Terrence Howard was in it.
Love Terrence Howard.
Yeah, he's great. And then Shannon Sossaman, who was in like A Knight's Tale, 40 Days, 40 Nights. She was hotter a while back, but now she's
okay.
I mean, as far as her career goes, you don't see her in a ton anymore, but she's done a really good job too. And man, it's been so good. Like, it starts out really creepy. Everybody in this town is kind of in on this dark and sinister scheme kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like publicly executing people, and they have these rules like don't talk about your past. Don't answer or anytime the phone rings, you have to answer it, and be happy. And like you're just they basically people were getting in car accidents and ending up in this town, and then being cut off to the rest of the world, and then you find out that it goes in a totally different direction and gets kind of science fiction-y.
Okay.
But, I mean, the whole thing has been fascinating, like from start to finish. And if you haven't watched it, if you have like on demand or whatever, or even just to go to fox.com and watch it on their website, I would highly encourage it. It's only 10 episodes. It's not going to take a ton of your time, but it's been awesome. Awesome show. So tip of the cap to the guys that made Wayward Pines. Anything else to note before we wrap up?
Just follow us on Twitter @CapPodcast and on Facebook, facebook.com/tipthecap.
And this will be up shortly. We appreciate you sticking with us, even though we've had a little bit of inconsistency in our schedule. But as always, Jason and I tip the cap to you.